Most of the time, when people are talking about fighter kites, they're talking about kites that are generally shaped in a diamond pattern. But fighter kites come in all kinds of shapes. And this is a rectangular shape that is based on a Japanese design called a buka. And in Japan, they're quite large. They're about 2 feet wide and or 3 feet wide and about 2 feet tall. And in North America, since we fly with much shorter flying lines in our line touch competitions, if you're going to be competitive, you need a kite that's fast, and you need it to be very, very maneuverable. Well, this kite, the buka, that the North American fighter kite flyers have developed is 15 inches across and 10 inches tall. That isn't any dimension that's particularly fixed. It's just the same proportions as the Japanese original design, shrunk down. And then instead of, like the Japanese, of course, use bamboo and paper, North American fighter kite flyers and kite makers use a polyfilm or some other synthetic and carbon fiber for the spars. Now in a buka, there are 4 spars. There's a leading edge spar, a spine, and 2 cross spars. Go corner to corner in the kite. And the kite, unlike a diamond-shaped fighter kite, a buka or a square kite needs to have a tension line built into it when you make the kite, and it has to and this has to be tensioned and the leading edge spar bent in order for the kite to fly. Very simple. This kite was made by a really good friend of mine. He's a superb kite maker and he's a master at flying bukas. He used 3 different materials for the skin and bonded them with a double-sided tape and ended up with a beautiful kite. In the air, this kite is stunning. And if you take the rectangular shape a little farther, this is a square kite. This is 15 inches on each side. I made this kite and I cut a hole in the center. Turned out I cut it too large. After I flew it with that size hole, it flew very, very, very slowly. And so I put another patch in the center to reduce that amount of hole. It flies very nice now. It's still a relatively slow flying kite, but wonderful flying kite. It has exactly the same spar structure. There's a leading edge spar, which has a tension line, and the tension line has to be tensioned before you fly it in order for it to fly. And I used 0.05 inch diameter carbon fiber for all the spars. And typically that's how bukas are made too, North American sized bukas that are roughly 15 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Now when you cut the skin out, when I cut my skin out, if like on this kite, it's 15 inches tall, but I made it a 1/4 inch taller in order to provide a fold over hem to wrap around the leading edge spar. Now there are some interesting aspects to making one of these kites. And one of the most interesting and most important is when you do it, you have to have the carbon fiber rods, every one of them, mounted onto the kite skin when you make the kite. They have to be mounted so that if you were just to hold the rod in your between two fingertips like this and bend it, it bends in a specific way, and you want that type of a bend, that natural orientation, to be the way you mount it when you mount it onto the kite skin when you glue it down. I use contact cement, so I would coat this with contact cement, let it dry. I would put contact cement along the skin, let it dry, and then when I'm ready to mount it, then I tension it like this, put it at the leading edge spar, or I'll show you what I actually do, but this is how generally it works, and then just lay it down onto the line of the kite skin where the spar goes. Now, I have a kite here that's also a buka. Now, this skin is a polyfilm. It's silver on one side and black on the other. And a friend of mine in Israel made this skin for me. He's an incredible artist. Ralph Resnick is his name. You can look him up online and see some of his artwork. Buy it, it's beautiful work. He uses a bleach product. It's like a gel, and that's how he created these silver and clear streaks in the black polyfilm by applying the gel bleach and allowing it to stay on the surface of the kite at different intervals before washing it off with water. Now, I won this in a buka competition that was a line touch buka only in 2008. Well, that was a long time ago. And when I built the kite, I decided to use a bamboo spine. Not sure why, I just decided to do it. That's what I have here. Normally I use carbon fiber for all the spars, but this flies very, very well with the bamboo. Now here's what I actually do. I use tubing that is small diameter, flexible plastic tubing. And I put a needle through it and poke a hole through it like this. And then, this is a red piece that I had used, did the same thing. And then I simply put this is the leading edge spar. I simply run that through one end and out the hole I made. And this provides me, when I put this right in the center, which I'm not going to actually measure and do, a place that I can put the spine and have the spine, and I'll know it's positioned correctly. Now with the cross spars, I do something similar. I just use a small piece of tubing, plastic, lightweight, flexible tubing, and I put one end of the crossbar in one end of the tubing and the other end into the leading edge spar. And then that's how I position it. So when I'm actually mounting it on the kite, because the inside diameter of the tubing is larger than the diameter of the carbon fiber, which is 0.05 inch carbon, it will rotate in there. So when I compress it like this, when I'm actually installing it in the kite, I just install it like this. It's already pre-glued. I just lay it down, and that's that. So, and I do that on both sides. So it's pretty easy. It's a simple little trick. You don't have to do it this way, obviously. There's a lot of other ways to do it. But I like this. It allows the orientation and the positioning to be maintained. And you probably could actually build a whole spar structure and glue it down at once if you were pretty clever with it. I've never tried that, but I think you could do it. But this is what the leading edge spar would look like. It'd have two pieces, one on each end, and a small piece in the center. And then you just connect the rest of the spars to it, glue them, and mount them down onto the kite skin. The kite skin's rectangular or square, whatever size you make it. So it's a very simple, easy to make kite, and they fly beautifully. They're quite fast, very quick to maneuver, going beyond just a diamond shape and expand your fighter kiting fun to include maybe a square kite with or without a hole, a rectangular kite of different dimensions, and add to the fun that you have flying fighter kites.